Hello, good morning. Thank you, Sven, for the nice introduction and for doing the extra step to pronounce my name and surname accordingly. By the way, Yannis Kanellopoulos is one of the most typical names and surnames in Greece. So a good one. I'm very happy and proud to be here with you today and present you the work that we're doing at Code for Thought. We work usually with large organizations and we help them to design, implement, and operate / manage / govern AI systems that can actually be of high quality when it comes to their business purpose, but also it can be of high responsibility when it comes to their impact they have on people and society in general. Today, I'm going to entertain a little bit the dichotomy between regarding the AI legislations. So, on one hand, especially C-level people, they see it as a burden. They see it as unnecessary bureaucracy or boring bureaucracy or a thing that doesn't allow us to do our job properly. But on the other hand, people like, I think, at least I'm a person who sees the glass always half full, that we see the legislation or regulation as an opportunity or as an enabler to improve our products and our services and do it also in a very structured way, because this is how regulations can help. I will try to do that by providing you quotes and anecdotal information from discussions with our clients and for projects with them. So it's not the most scientific evidence that's going to be presented here. It is mostly a report from the trenches, a report from the field. And starting about the impression that C-level people have when they first hear about the EU AI Act. So first they say, well, we have GDPR, we have DORA, we have PCI DSS, we have our internal auditors. Will we have the time to actually serve our business, to do our job properly, or are we going to spend all our time complying and doing nothing else rather than complying? And things get a little bit worse if they see graphs like that that indicate the costs, the extra costs, the additional costs of each regulation on the operational costs of a bank. So on the vertical axis, we see the numbers represent millions. The green bars indicate the averages of the average of operational costs of financial organizations in Europe, and we see that the additional compliance costs for GDPR, for DORA, for PCI DSS, and EU AI Act. And this image gets even worse if we take into account the hidden costs of non-compliance. So the fines that each organization faces if there are incidents regarding their systems. And we see that the EU AI Act surpasses even the GDPR, which until now was the holy grail or was the king of regulations. So things are when it comes to numbers, are serious for these organizations. So all these executives tend to see the regulations as a hurdle. And probably it resonates, it makes sense, but when we start explaining them more what the regulations such as EU AI Act dictates or asks from them, then there is so when the dust settles, as we say, or the frustration, so people realize, usually at the IT departments that we work usually, that the EU AI Act actually asks our engineers to do their job properly, because essentially what legislations are asking when it comes to AI systems and AI models is to test them for accuracy, bias, all these nice properties that we see out there. Plus, you need to document them adequately and explain your decisions, your design decisions about the system. So, nevertheless, actually it requires organizations to give their engineers the right resources and time and space to do their job as they're supposed to do and not hurry them to just build something and put it into production. To enhance that, we have done a project with a healthcare startup here in the Netherlands, and the CEO expressed his I mean, he expressed the value he perceived by doing this exercise because the given system operates in healthcare, it makes life or death decisions, so adequate or thorough testing is necessary for them to make sure that they are deploying something which is safe, also related to the previous presentation, but also the team knows its weaknesses and they know how to handle them. So when, let's say, we start convincing organizations about the necessity of EU AI Act or to explain them how they can start addressing the demands or the requirements it sets, then the misconceptions surface. One of the most common misconceptions, especially at C-level, is why we don't need to test our AI systems. Accuracy, my people told me the system is accurate, so I don't need to test it because accuracy is good, it's more than 90% or 95%. So why do you come and say that we need to test them? Usually we show them this graph, which shows a system with 90% of accuracy that was delivering very poor business results. Actually, this system was removed from production because this system was supposed to identify sentiments in social media, and usually organizations are interested about the positive and the negative, not the neutral sentiments. Usually, in real life, when I'm let's say Pepsi and I release a new brand, a new soft drink, the sentiments are neutral for most of the time, but when I release something new, I expect to have positive and negative sentiments for my, let's say, new brand or new product. And this, let's say, these cases, I want my system to identify. I don't want to identify the neutrals because it's 90% of the cases, but I want to make sure it makes a good job on this 10%. And the system was not being tested against, let's say, the irregularities or the outliers or the corner cases. So the 90% of accuracy was actually a false KPI for the team to optimize and operate. So moving from performance/accuracy and going to fairness, we hear the question, so why do we need to test our systems for bias? Since we are in the Netherlands, I would like to give them the example of what happened 2 or 3 years ago here in the Netherlands with this algorithm that was flagging wrong categories of people for fraud. It was a governmental algorithm, so it was one of the factors that forced the government at that time to step down. So that's what the example would like to give to organizations, that even a government can step down due to bias that can harm people. So what we see in this graph is that usually, if you start testing your systems for biases, the percentage of the systems that continue to exhibit them is declining. And all the, let's say, on the most important aspects such as socioeconomic, which might be the financial status, or the let's say the education level, or age, race, gender. So we see that there is value in testing your system for bias. You're addressing problems, you're addressing issues before even you deploy them to operate your systems in production. But one of the questions we receive from our clients is, are all biases evil? Are all biases bad? Or we can identify biases, but still we can accept them. So this is a case of a bias which we did a project for a large financial institution. There was a system that was flagging, a marketing system that was identifying clients to be in a list for buying financial products. And we saw that there is a bias against widow women and men of elementary that have finished only the elementary school or the middle school. And the team that, when we saw them the findings, they said, well, these are good findings, but these are valid. I mean, according to our credit policy as a bank, this is to be expected. We don't, these categories, historically, we see that they are not good clients or they're not paying their obligations on time, so we avoid them. We avoid trying to sell them. So, in a nutshell, what we discussed with our team was that, okay, since you identify, you need to make sure you document why you accept those biases and why are you not doing anything to mitigate them. And going now to transparency, our team considers it actually as a business value multiplier. And the simple reason about it is, to simply put, it opens the black box. So we have a system, and if we don't know how this system operates, we cannot trust it. So several articles and reports out there indicate that the systems that they have mostly adopted by the users are the ones who can be highly explainable. That doesn't mean that the system itself it can be explainable, but there needs to be a mechanism to provide the explanations alongside to the system. And a good example of this was another project when we assessed an HR system that was predicting employee churn, and we ran this analysis to see how the model resonates. And one of the things that we wanted to check was that whether the sensitive attributes like age or sex or marital status were playing a role, because they were like they were included in the data set, were playing a role in the decisions, but we saw that they're not. And the most important ones are the ones who resonate more also to the human resources department, which are like how many years the employee is in his current role, when was the last time he's got a salary increase, how many years he's in the company, and also what were the results of his 3 previous evaluations. So by this example, what we try to showcase is that we can use the regulatory compliance can actually help us in growing our business or to sell more products or more services, either because it helps us to improve them, so it gives us better products or competitive advantages, but also it can give us the ability to open new markets. A good example is the New York City Bias Law, which is a law imposed by the City of New York, which forces all the HR software providers whose systems are making automated decisions to undergo a bias testing. If those systems are not being tested for bias, they cannot actually be operational in the City of New York. And last but not least, the regulation can be a strategic opportunity or a compelling reason for organizations to start building, as we call them, thoughtful systems. Because they give them the frame of reference, they give them the requirements and the direction, so they put some structure in their endeavor, let's say, to build better systems. That's it from my side. Thank you very much for having us here.
Thanks so much, Yannis. So you make a very compelling case that's why testing and controlling your AI system actually provides value. But I think in many cases also organizations will shy away a bit because it seems so complex and where to start. What would be your response to that?
Well, yeah, it seems like a complex process, but there are certain steps one can follow to start testing their system. As I said, we are focusing on the assets of the systems themselves, and what we usually help the teams is to select the proper testing data set and to run to use it in the tests, and then we run all those tests in parallel in order to be able to provide a holistic, let's say, a holistic picture of the whole of the system.
Yeah. And then probably once you've done it one time, then it doesn't feel like.
Well, let's just say that we use technology to evaluate technology. That's why we have our own platform to run the tests, and that helps tremendously because we automate the steps of the process.
Yeah.
So we are, let's say, we use our tool as an instrument for the audit, which helps you to provide to do the measurements in a repeatable way, structured way. So all this complexity that somebody's afraid of, we alleviate it and we focus on the results.
Yeah, good. Question in the audience. I think we have time for one question again. Anyone? Yeah, I see. We see a hand up there, somewhere in the middle.
Thanks. So I just checked your website to see like the different solutions that you offer. I was wondering, what is it that your clients usually need the most help with, like out of the specific solutions that you bring?
I think everybody starts with, that's a good question, thank you very much. Usually they start with the performance of the system, but then we explain them why other aspects are important, like the fairness aspect or the transparency. So we build on top of the performance.
Usually kind of going back to what you presented, so push them towards, let's look at biases, let's look at these sort of things.
Sorry?
I mean, so you are trying to push people away from just performance testing and go towards looking at everything, especially like biases.
No, we include it, but we want to build the whole, let's say, we want to have a complete picture, a comprehensive picture of the whole system. So that's why we believe quality of a system can be defined by the performance, but the rest, when it comes to responsible AI, is mostly related to transparency, bias, and so on.
Thanks.
Okay, so Jannes, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Applause again.